heavy equipment is hauling soil as heavy as concrete from 40 feet down to make room for a retractable field. It's a massive project on 62 acres across from the Mandalay Bay, and none of this could start until crews could rip out an existing flood channel under the proposed stadium.
Day one, we knew box culvert. That was just ingrained in our heads of something that we knew we needed to, account for. It was always a priority, and I think being one of the first projects we kind of dealt with the stadium, we really saw that the amount of time and effort that brought everyone together to make sure we got this taken care of really gave us the foundation that we were going to be doing some special things here, because that really got accelerated, and just by the progress of where it's at now and how fast it's gone, it really set the tone for really the project and how we got started.
The Raiders worked with contractors Mortensen McCarthy, the design team at Kimley Horn, and the Regional Flood Control District to figure out how to move the channel to allow the stadium to be built and keep flood control in place.
Every challenge has a solution, and I would tell you that the team has huddled together as far as the local communities, the local trade partners, the politicians have all come together and have really, and the local agencies have all, had the main focus of building this project and bringing the Raiders to Las Vegas, and I think it's been everybody's main goal. The existing culvert that spans from basically Polaris through the project site onto the connector road is actually in the way of the future stadium. This all happened, there's some setback requirements for the stadium that had to move the project stadium away from the interstate. When that happened, the outline of the stadium was in the way of the existing culvert. We worked with the Corps of Engineers, Regional Flood, Public Works to relocate the culvert, and so it's about 375 feet away from the stadium and its new alignment.
The original channel was built in partnership with the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. As a result, the Army Corps has been highly involved in approving design plans and recently visited the site to make sure everything was being built as approved. The old channel has already been demolished, and the new channel has been built. Crews are finishing up the concrete top on the reinforced concrete boxes.
So one of the main concerns that we had and that the Corps of Engineers had was what's going to happen during construction if a storm event were to hit. And so the Corps in particular required the contractor to come up with almost like an emergency action plan to determine what would happen, what their practices would be if a storm event were to hit.
Some challenges are this is a Tropicana detention basin. It fills up with water, and it fills up to 4 feet high when you have a 100-year flood. And not knowing when that next 100-year flood was, we had to do a lot of mitigation planning with the Corps and Regional Flood on how to build this project in different phases.
Emergency plans were created to divert water in case of flooding. The flood channel carries water from throughout the southwest part of Las Vegas during rain events. Luckily, permits were in place to allow construction to occur during mostly a dry winter and spring.
Then when we went to construction, there was some very large NB Energy conduits in Polaris that had to be relocated, and again NB Energy came to the table and did their part and expedited everything and kept everything moving. And as you mentioned, the box culvert got out of the way of the foundation of the stadium in time.
Every construction project has its shares of unforeseen circumstances. Moving the culvert just 300 feet led to one unexpected find: a Nevada Energy electrical conduit that wasn't on the existing plans.
We had some utility conflicts in the field, so we've had unknown utilities that were in the proposed alignment, and so we've had to work with Nevada Energy and Regional Flood and the Corps to reroute the culvert for a temporary bypass. We've done that work this far, and now Nevada Energy has moved some of their alignment of their poles and their lines, and we're now installing some new utility alignments, and which will sink underneath our culvert and will allow us to proceed forward with the original planned culvert.
Another issue that arose during construction was the length of time it took the concrete to strengthen after it was poured. The concrete did not reach the desired strength after 28 days. Instead of ripping out all of the boxes, the county and the contractor waited, and after 45 days, the concrete exceeded its strength. Now it's just up to the contractor to put the finishing touches on the channel.
It keeps the same size and alignment, so there is the same ultimate protection. And another design challenge was making sure that while the culvert was being relocated, that we were protected during a flood event, should that happen while the box culvert was being relocated. So there was a lot of thought put in by the Mortenson-McCarthy team of during construction how they could make sure that everything was protected in the interim. In the end, it will be the same channel operating the same way, but the interim piece is something that has to be considered from an engineering perspective and a construction perspective.
Now that the flood channel is all but finished, the stadium can really take shape. In just a few months, the Las Vegas skyline will have a new prominent feature. Mortenson-McCarthy is using local staff who have worked on projects in Southern Nevada.
So Mortenson-McCarthy is a joint venture. Mortenson has the sports group, history and background and knowledge on the project, and McCarthy brings the local presence. And we align in a lot of our core values and the culture that our employees embrace out here. And Mortenson-McCarthy has done other projects together as joint ventures, so it made sense on this project to combine again. You're always under the microscope, which is good. We take pride in keeping a clean job and making sure that we keep everybody to the high safety standards that we have for each project. And so we're looking forward to the successful project with the local community and everybody that has something to offer for the stadium, because there are a lot of proud Raiders fans out here, and they deserve the best.
When you see all of the work that's going on in the stadium right now, it's hard to believe that just a couple months ago, the whole project was in jeopardy. It took a lot of cooperation to get the ball rolling in time.
On paper, it's relatively simple to move a flood control channel. But when you're moving a flood channel paid for with federal dollars, the feds want to know exactly what you're doing. And it's common for a federal review to stretch into years.
Because there was federal dollars involved in the construction of that project, that means that the federal government, or the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers in this case, has to permit that modification. Anytime there's a modification to any facility that was built by the Corps, it has to be approved through the Corps through what we call a 408 permit process. So generally when you're getting a 408 permit, it can take 12 to 18 months, which is quite a bit more time than we had in terms of the schedule for the Raiders trying to get their stadium open by the 2020 season. And so we had to find ways to try to accelerate that.
Yeah, it was a little bit expedited. The way that we got this permit in record time was strictly partnership and teamwork. That's the only way we got it done. And from the very beginning, Clark County Regional Flood Control District, the Board of County Commissioners, the Raiders, the contractor Mortenson-McCarthy, the environmental consultant and the geotech consultant, and obviously the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. And our team of Kimley Horn, we had partners from all over the United States that were experts in what we needed to do in structural and H&H and civil. All of these people came together, and in the very beginning we set the tone with a meeting with the Army Corps of Engineers in May of 2017 and said, we need a permit by fall or the stadium schedule's in jeopardy.
It was a really quick turnaround on the permit. Again, it usually takes 12 to 18 months. We got it done in about 3.5 months. I think we can thank the LA District of the Corps for stepping up and really getting on this permit and recognizing the importance of this permit for the Las Vegas Valley.
Simply put, everyone had to work at the top of their game to get the stadium started. Regional Flood couldn't have done it without Kimley Horn. Kimley Horn needed Mortenson-McCarthy, the contractors needed the Raiders, and everyone needed the Army Corps.
There were other pieces, the Army Corps permit was one piece of the puzzle. The plans, the box relocation plans also had to be permitted through all the agencies and through flood control, through all of the utility agencies. So we had to have a permit by December 15th, 2017, or the entire project was in jeopardy. And it was really the first milestone of the project from a construction and engineering phase. So it felt really good as a team for us to make that goal, and so many people who helped us get there. And it's teamwork, and it's all of the engineers at Kimley Horn and outside of Kimley Horn and the consultant team that really just came together and got it done. But it is a community partnership.
When the federal fiscal budget ran dry, Regional Flood entered into an agreement with the feds to fund the review and go into a separate agreement with the Raiders to pay for it.
We entered into an agreement with the Corps wherein we could provide funding to the Corps to allow the permit to be expedited, the review of the permit to be expedited. At the same time, in parallel to that, we entered into an agreement with the Las Vegas Stadium, LLC, for them to provide those funds for us. So we basically took the funds from the Raiders organization and passed it on to the Corps so that that permit review could be expedited. And it wound up trimming the review time down quite a bit. Once the agreements were in place at the end of August, we wound up getting the permit issued in the middle of December. So it took about 3.5 months.
When we came into Las Vegas, I think our main priority was to, create a relationship built on teamwork. That's kind of the organization. That's kind of something that we're really proud of the way we operate. So when we came down here, just understanding that we're all working towards one common goal, the stadium, which really has an impact on the entire Southern Nevada area. So when we came in and, really understanding that we're all, each of us have different areas of expertise, but at the end of the day, in 2020, when we get the stadium, it's going to be something we're really going to be proud of.
I was born and raised in Las Vegas, so I know how great Las Vegas is and how great our partners are, and it was great that the Raiders and everybody got to see that. I think it was fantastic. I'm also a two-time UNLV grad, so one of my other favorite things, and I think it's going to be great for the school. It's going to be a great community partnership, and they've also come to the table as a partner in this whole thing, so I think it's going to be great.
Any NFL stadium or any community you go to, you really need buy-in from everyone. And when we decided to make the move to Las Vegas, we kind of knew that this was a special market, and since we've been here, we've really seen the community, even with the Golden Knights success and kind of, just seeing the amount of Raider logos in the community and just some of the events that we're doing, we're really seeing that people here are really passionate about sports, they're passionate about football. People might be fans of other teams, but we're kind of seeing that the Raiders are really doing a lot of stuff to kind of bring people together, and the stadium really is going to create a lot of opportunities that can further that community bonding and things like that.
Clark County has more square miles than New Jersey, and keeping tabs of weather in all corners of the county is more than a full-time job for 3 district staffers.
As of 2 months ago, we just installed our 200th gauge within Clark County, plus a couple others in Lincoln County, one in Arizona. But we do maintain all 200 sites twice a year. We do preventive maintenance in spring and fall when the weather is more comfortable. And part of our process is to come up with a list every day of gauges that are relatively close to each other, so we're not driving too far. And one at a time, we'll approach the station. We will check the battery. We actually remove the battery, which will be tested back in the shop, and replace it with a fresh battery. We will test the solar panel for sites that can maintain a solar panel to make sure that the batteries will continue to be charged over the next roughly 6 months until the next visit. We will check the radio to make sure that the radio is putting out enough power so that we can receive the data. We will also check the antenna and the antenna cable to make sure we're not getting anomalous reflected power that could damage the radio. And if that's the case, we'll change them out as needed. And we will replace the tipping buckets annually. The tipping buckets are what are used to monitor rainfall. And the tipping buckets we pull from the field. We take them back to the office to recalibrate.
Sometimes, gauges that were easy to maintain become very hard to access. 6 months ago, crews were easily able to drive this rocky road, located off a power line road, just about 4 miles off Interstate 15 near Jean. But on a recent December day, the road was not just bumpy, it was impassable. And the gauge is 4 miles away at the base of McCullough Hills. On this morning, the road won.
The road has been rutted out gradually over the years, just from frequent use, not just by vehicles like ours, but it's a popular road for off-road travel. Road races have been held over there, and that will impact the road over time, of course. And plus, Mother Nature is another concern. After a heavy rain near the McCullough Hills occurs, it's very common for the nearby gullies to wash out that segment of road as they cross the road itself.
In addition to 200 gauges, The staff also maintains 6 repeaters. The repeaters are located high above the desert floor and carry signals from far away back to the district's offices. One of the repeaters is atop Mount Potosi.
We drive up to the peak, we take it out of its protective canister and maintain it similarly to a weather station where we change the battery twice a year. We test the solar panel to make sure that the battery is charged. A repeater uses more power than a weather station. For example, a weather station's radio will typically put out 5 watts. A radio repeater will use 20 watts, but the radio repeater transmits far more frequently than a weather station. So it's even more critical for us to maintain the solar panel and make sure the battery is going to be doing its job over the next 6 months.
One of the repeaters on Virgin Peak can only be accessed by helicopter. Others are so off the road, it's hard to sometimes remember exactly how to get to them.
If the roads are properly maintained and it hasn't rained in a while, getting to and from a site's usually not a challenge. After a heavy rain, especially during the summer monsoon season, dirt roads can easily wash out. And if that's the case, then we have to evaluate our choices. If the segment of road that's washed out isn't washed out too badly, sometimes we can use hand tools and patch up the road ourselves and be on our way. Some gauges, we deliberately place them far enough off the road so they're not easily visible from the road because vandalism can be an issue. But at other locations where vandalism is not a problem and we have secured permission to do so, we can drive up to those gauges, and the ones we can drive up to are far more easily serviceable because we don't have to carry a lot of equipment, and we can work out of the back of the truck, which minimizes the amount of climbing we have to do on a ladder. It's over at our Fossil Ridge location. We park the truck and we have to walk 4/10 of a mile to the gauge, and of course 4/10 of a mile back. And if we happen to realize we need to replace a part, or worse yet, we forgot to bring a part on our initial trip, guess what? We have to do that trip all over again. You know, it did rain in the area, and this site did not report any rainfall. We would come out here and try and figure out why, and that would certainly be a reason to not report rainfall. That's why we get paid the big bucks to come out here and maintain these things. There are things you have to be mindful of course. Any cactus in the area, you don't want to kick that. They'll definitely leave a mark. And don't want to step on any holes. You never know what critter dug them or might be living in a hole. In the 11 years doing this job, I have not come across a snake in the desert. I've seen a few desert tortoises, but the one thing that will freak out a novice on this job is if you're carrying your gear to a site and a bush will suddenly rustle as a large rabbit bounds away. If you're not expecting that, that will cause your heart to jump.
Because the Wetlands Park is first and foremost a floodway to get all of that water from the watershed out into the lake, it does bring a lot of trash. So any trash that falls anywhere within the valley, those floodwaters can bring that trash into the various washes, then in turn enter into the Las Vegas wash. So after any rain event, we find all kinds of trash in the wash, which is within the Wetlands Park. So unfortunately, you can see mattresses, you can see surfboards, you can see stuffed animals. We found tons and tons of balls, basketballs, any kind of ball you find out here. So it really is a problem. So we try very hard to go out and clean after these flood events, but it's always happening out there, and it's something that people need to be cognizant. You know, when you throw that piece of trash out your window, it can make its way into the Las Vegas wash. You know, what you do upstream affects us downstream. And so it's really important, you know, just to put your trash in the proper place, because otherwise you will see it at the end of the line.
Wetlands Park was created by stormwater and urban runoff. Its main purpose is flood control, but it's also an amazing place to walk, bike, or see something you might not expect to find in the desert.
So the Clark County Wetlands Park is located on the eastern part of the valley. It's about 2,900 acres in size, about 7.5 miles long, and it really is a wonderful place here out in the valley. We've got more than 2,900 acres of wetland and riparian habitat. You can see wildlife out here that you can see nowhere else in the valley. We've got raccoons, beaver, kit foxes, coyotes, and more than 300 species of birds that can be seen out here on any given day. What's really great about the Clark County Wetlands Park is it's built in the floodway, and so all of the water from the watershed flows through the Clark County Wetlands Park in the Las Vegas Wash, and that's what brings water to the Clark County Wetlands Park. That's why the Wetlands Park was built. And with that, as it makes its way through the Clark County Wetlands Park, it can create all this wonderful wetland and riparian habitat. It brings plants and animals here that you don't see elsewhere. And so we've built more than 14 miles of trails through the Wetlands Park. We've got more than 210 acres within the nature preserve of really nicely manicured trails that you can come out and hike on. They're all ADA compliant. And so it really is a great place to come out and visit.
This park is at a much lower elevation than the rest of the valley. This is where all the water comes down. Unfortunately, there's also a lot of trash with that.
Everyone can do their part to keep stormwater clean.
Another is to keep trash and debris picked up in your yards and in your facilities. Another thing is to make sure that your vehicles are well maintained so that you get oil leaks or other fluid leaks of your vehicles fixed promptly. Those kinds of things. Always take your vehicle to get changed. If you do your oil changes yourself, never dump the oil in the storm sewer system. Always take it to a recycling facility or get your oil changed at a reputable oil change facility. A source of pollutant that a lot of people don't think of is pet waste, and so you always want to make sure that when you take your pet out, you have some doggy bags with you to take that, to be able to pick up the pet waste and take it back with you and throw it in the trash appropriately. Don't just leave it on the streets, because ultimately that again ends up in the storm sewer system. Lots of community facilities, parks, and trails have doggy bag stations along them so that, to make it easy for residents to be able to manage their pet waste, but we still see quite a bit of that.
Lake Mead is full of life, a seemingly endless aquatic parade, attracting and sustaining busy desert creatures. It's one of the most diverse ecosystems in Nevada, with species found nowhere else on Earth. But every time soap suds run down your driveway, oil drips in the streets, fertilizer washes off your lawn, or random trash gets swept in our storm sewers, their home gets a little uglier. They get a little sicker. If we don't take simple steps to change our ways, soon you'll wonder where all our friends have gone. It's time to clean up our act, Southern Nevada. To get your home or business lake-friendly certified, visit belakefriendly.com.
The district gives presentations to elementary school students throughout the county, from large schools in the middle of the city to small rural schools like Ute Perkins Elementary in Moapa.
Our presentation is about safety, so whoever said that was right. So whenever you guys hear anything about safety, make sure your eyes are open really wide and pointing at the presenter, and your ears are open. There's no one else's voices in them, because what you learn today is going to help save your life or the life of someone else. So today's presentation is about flash floods. Raise your hand if you've ever heard of a flash flood or seen a flash flood. Flash flooding happens when there's really, really hard rain. How many of you guys have ever heard it rain while you were in your classroom, in the ceiling, yeah? So if it goes really, really hard, that means there might be a flash flood.
Flooding has hit the Moapa Valley in a big way in recent years. In 2014, a storm wiped out a portion of Interstate 15 and blocked access to and from some rural schools.
The flooding was just crazy. It washed out the freeway. The kids here were trapped. They couldn't get home, and a lot of teachers couldn't get home to the other valley, and there were quite a few houses that their basements were washed out, and there were some cars trapped. It was pretty crazy out here. We have quite a few streets down in Overton. A lot of times when there's a big rain, you can't get out to like Lake Mead, to Valley of Fire, because there's a huge dip, and it floods and you can't get through.
Should you guys ever go in those washes when it's raining? Absolutely not. Never, ever, ever go into washes or channels or detention basins. You'll see one in the video. Detention basins are like a big bathtub. We use these big bathtubs to catch the water because sometimes, remember how it rains up in the mountains? That water is sliding down fast. So we have to catch it, and we put it in that detention basin and we hold it and slow it down. In fact, in the next couple of years, you guys might see it. We're going to build a detention basin not too far from your school, so that when it rains on top of the mountains near your school, we catch all that water.
So several of the kids out here, they, after that big flood, they will bring, at the beginning of the year, like a big bag full of food and water and like a blanket in case they're trapped here again. So just being prepared. This valley is great at stepping up and helping each other, but we really try to be prepared.
Flash flooding happens when there's really, really hard rain. How many of you guys have ever heard it rain while you were in your classroom, in the ceiling, yeah? So if it goes really, really hard, that means there might be a flash flood.
It's extremely important because a lot of these kids, they play outside all the time, and when that water hits, like there's no warning, you don't hear it coming, it just comes, and they really need to know safety, to know what to do if they see that flood coming, how to get out of it, and just all those safety precautions.
Over the past 2 years, the district has reached more than 20,000 students with messages to be remembered.
It's